very good day to everybody. My name is Vasanth and I'm a NEET expert. I actually train NEET aspirants to achieve their genes. And today we are going to see a 10th standard chapter, a continuation of this chapter. It has 2 more videos prepared already in the previous topics. And this third video will be containing specific topics that we are going to discuss in this class. Okay. So I hope everybody will enjoy the class. Let's get into the class. So allow me some time. Yeah, I hope everybody is able to see the presentation, right? Yes, very good. So now the topics which you are going to see are the acquired traits and the inherited traits, and on top of that we are going to study in detail about the evolution, and we are going to see even the evidences of evolution. It might look very less, or like it will be less or very minimal amount of content, but it has a lot of expansion that we're going to go through, which is going to be very important. Okay, so let's get into the topic right away. So before when we see acquired and inherited trait, acquired trait is anything a person acquires, okay, in the period of lifetime that he survives in this very world. So inherited is any character or any trait, okay, that is being transferred from the future, from the parents to the offsprings. So it will be passed on from one generation to another generation. So that is the main difference between acquired trait and inherited trait. Excuse me. So there are a lot of differences that you can actually see when it comes to inherited and acquired traits with respect to different parameters. So the parameters include origin. So where are they obtained from when it comes to inherited trait? They obtained from the parents, which will be passed on from one generation to next generation. Okay, one generation to next generation. But in the case of acquired trait, it is the characteristic the organism, okay, developed, okay, during the process of lifetime. So that is also given over here. So which means the characteristic that the organism possesses would have been acquired through the process of time that the organism survives in this life. Okay, so that's the first difference. So when it comes to the types of variation that actually they go through is the inherited trait will be basically the genetic variation which would have been the cause for this inherited trait. Okay, so any kind of variation that happens, the genetic material would be inherited. Okay, and the case of acquired trait, it is basically somatic variation. We have studied about different types of variation in the first video. So where they are actually genetic or gametic and then somatic variation. So usually if it is going to be gametic variation where the variations or the changes going to happen in the genetic material, then it will be inherited trait, because the inherited material, the genetic DNA, will be having the variation. So there will be change in the DNA which would be inherited, because we have seen even in the reproduction chapter and inherited in evolution how the genetic materials are transferred from the parents to the offsprings, as they are being contributed from each of the parent, and then this contributed DNA material will be forming the new hybrid of that particular organism. So somatic variation is where it is mainly body based. Okay, it will be something superficial. It will not have any changes done in the genetic material. So it is called somatic variation. Any differentiation that is caused by external influence, usually environmental influence. Okay, so next one is development. How do they develop? So they are developed during different process. We have already seen what are the things which makes the variations complex. I introduced the word called crossing over, where we saw that the chromosomes will be the homologous chromosomes. They'll be overlapping with each other, and then they will exchange the genetic material of different length, different size, different quantity. So it will be random and it will not be programmed. Okay, so as a result of which there will be a differentiation, there will be a variation that is created. This happens in the cell division called meiosis, which happens only during the gamete formation, gametogenesis. Now it also could be formed by the process of mutation. Mutation is any changes, morphological changes done on the genetic material at a smaller level. Let's say, for an example, if this is a DNA, okay, which has A, T, G, C, T, A, C. So suddenly the G is deleted, or it could be replaced by C again. So this could be mutation. So this could cause a complete change in the sequence of genetic material because it is in triplet codon model. Now, the acquired trait is where this developed due to use and disuse our organs and are affected by the environment. So how like how useful is a product in the system? So let's say, for an example, I've already given you this. When an organism lives in a condition where the weather condition where there is very less amount of heat, or there is less probability of retention of heat, so they will develop a higher quantity of fat on the under the skin, okay, in a superficial, okay. So now so this process is actually because of the environmental changes. So this is an acquired trait. And heredity. So can inherited traits be transmitted to the next generation? Of course it can be, because it is going to be part of the genetic material which will get transferred into the next generation. So it is obvious that the genetic material which will be undergoing changes will be transferred in the process of gametes. Okay, so that will be inherited. It is heredity in nature. Okay, but in the case of acquired traits, they are not transmitted to the next generation. So instead, the organism who have actually acquired the characteristics will be like erased out of existence in the same organism once after the organism leaves the dies. Okay, so that is acquired traits. So this is acquired and inherited traits in detail. Okay, so any characteristic features which is acquired and the organism possesses them by birth, we call them as inherited trait. Or any characteristics or any trait which they acquire in the process of life and later it will not get transmitted or transferred into the next generation, then those are called acquired traits. So this is the acquired and inherited traits in nutshell. I hope everybody would have understood this. Let's get to the next topic. So evolution. So what is so fun about evolution? Evolution is where a species already exists. Let's say species 1 is existing. Species 1 is existing. So due to constant accumulation of variations, okay, variations at different levels. So this species 1 will be forming two different species. Species 1A and species 1 still be existing. And if the environmental, environmental features is going to support the living of both S1 and SA, then they both will be living. And again, S1A, S1 will again be, could be deviating into S1B, and still S1 will be pertaining. So now, when the environmental feature will not be supporting S1B, the S1B will become extinct. Okay. So the diversification of one particular organism due to accumulation of variation gradually over time, okay, that gets deviated from the existing organism is called evolution. So evolution literally gives you a gradual change and it will cause a diversification of organisms from one another. So this is actually evolution. So there are several processes which actually relies on which evolution relies on. So we'll be discussing about them in detail. Okay. First, so here natural selection. Here this scenario states that so when a bird actually looks for the insects, usually they're insectivorous. When they see the insect, green background represents the leaves, and the insects could be easily identified. Insects could be easily identified. It's just simulation and understandable stuff. Okay. This red bug is very distinctively visible on a green surface. So they could actually distinguish them with their color difference, and they could be found out. They could be easily seen. So they are going to be feasted upon. So, but when the insects actually tend to accumulate variation and later have acquired a green color, which made them camouflage with the background, it is obvious that the insects will not be able to, insects will not be feasted upon by the birds because they will not be seen. So instead, the red one, which is distinctly visible, will be hunted more or will be devoured more. Okay, will be hunted more. So as a process of which the probability of finding or the number of organism of this particular color will be high. Okay, so this is how naturally the organism tend to get selected. So this is actually because of the natural selection. So in the next scenario, where you can see there are two different types of organism that are living. So like two different, one type of organism with two different distinguishable characteristics or traits. Okay. So here the one bug is red in color, another bug is blue in color. Here it is not with respect to color. It is an accidental event, any accidental event, an unexpected event, which is going to change the percentage or the ratio of organisms that is existing. Let's say here they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they are in the proportion of 6:2. Okay. So due to some accidental event, okay, or elephant stomping or anything like that, the probability of organism have been completely converted to 1:2. Okay. Now, as a result of which, what happens? The ratio of distribution of the genetic material in the organisms have been like completely disrupted and changed. And now, due to the constant reproduction and stuff, the population have literally inversed to 2:6. See here, this is called genetic drift. The genetic material, the probability, the ratio of the genetic material's existence in the environment literally changes due to a random event. So this is called genetic drift, a drift from one phase to another because of an unexpected event. Okay, and the third scenario is where the characteristic feature could be like bendable. Let's say, for example, an organism, okay, which is relying on a particular type of plant, and that plant will be like very much needed for the organism to survive. But the point is, but the problem is, when that plant on which the insects are relying upon, when they are actually being in a disease condition or something like that, or going to extinction or anything like that, so then the population of the organisms should go down. So instead, what they do is, let's say, for example, a person who has a bigger body proportion, height and weight, so their requirement of energy would be very high. So what if they could reduce the requirement? So how can they do that? They can reduce their body size by controlling the expressivity of the growth gene. So they do that upon the deficiency of food substances, and the size of the insects have reduced. But instead, they are living upon the same amount of food, but more number of organisms. So once after the disease has been eradicated from that place, when they are coming back to normal, they will get back into the same size once they were into. Okay, so this is called survival adaptation, that the organism have changed its existence or like modified its characteristics just to survive the characteristic. This kind of survival ability is one of the most important to survive the evolution. This is one reason why the dinosaurs couldn't survive. So usually people say the dinosaur was killed by the meteors. So what you should understand is the meteor didn't kill the whole planet. Instead, the meteor literally created or agitated a huge impact, and then it covered the whole earth with a large like smoky stuff. Okay, so as a result of which the penetration of sunlight wasn't there, and then very less amount of plants were there, and animals were like completely suffocated, and then they died. So this is the main reason why the dinosaurs actually died. Okay, because of the meteors. So I hope you have understood about evolution in little bit, like with these examples, with these scenarios explained clearly. Let's go to the next one. So there are several evidences that proves evolution is existing. Like how did the organisms evolve literally? So we'll see a few of them. Evidences. There are different documents, different structures, different proofs through which the evolution can be evidently proven. Okay. So let's see those evidences. Here, this is called homologous organs. HOMOLOGS. Homologous, okay, organs. And this is called analogous. Analogous. So what is homologous? Homologous organs are organs who have same structural characteristics but different functions. So if you see, a human hand will have, so all the bones that is formed from is actually named, okay, or is actually like color coded. So you can see they're all same bones, but the purpose of human is to grab hold of things, and then working with it, doing several works. But in the case of horse, it is running. And in the case of cat, it has to run, catch, jump and everything. And then bat, their forelimb is modified to for flight. And then for birds, the forelimbs are modified with flight again. But for the whale, which is also a mammal, and their forearm is modified to form flippers. So this is the same homologous basic structure, but the function that they use it for is different. So this condition is called homologous organs. And analogous organs is where all the functional will be same, but the structure will be different. Here you can see the bat wing will be having membranous structure stretched all over the forearm. But in the case of bird wings, it is just that the feathers will be extended out of the forearm. And the insects can also fly, but they don't have any kind of limbs. Instead, they just have the the wings that is extended from the thoracic region. So this is actually analogous organ. So analogous organ is where the basic structure is different, but the function is all same. So this is proving an evidence towards the evolution. So let's see more of these things. Okay. The next thing is vestigial organ. So every organism which has a particular character, when the time passes by, that character is not used anymore, then it is obvious that the body will keep it as a dysfunctional or unfunctional or unrequired structure, something like that. So you can see that rudimentary ear muscles that human have, and then the third molar that we have, and the coccygeal tail vertebrae, okay, and then vermiform appendix. Okay, all these are usually the nictitating membrane on the inner side of the eye. So all these are vestigial organs. We call this vestigial organ. Vestigial organs. So vestigial organs explains that when the organ is not going to be functional, and it was functional and it is not functional anymore, so those are called vestigial organs. So the third molar is not functional because the third molar is used, usually the molars are used to chew. Now we are cooking the food so much and the chewing part is not even required, we just have to gulp it. So third molar becomes completely useless. And the ear muscles, in the case of ear muscles, usually the human try to locate the ear towards the direction where the sound is coming from to increase the amount of sound absorbed. So, but in human being, we are able to have a proper sensation and stuff like that, very advanced cochlear ability. So it's obvious that the rudimentary muscles or ear muscles, which is not required anymore. And our balance, the tail of an organism is usually used for swimming, balancing, and then several other purposes, and defense also. But in our case, the tail's purpose of monkeys, like our ancestors, was balancing when they were in the trees. But now, because we are not in the trees, we are in the ground, and we spend a lot of time over there, we don't need such thing. So instead, that balancing of the body is taken care by the inner cochlear fluid. So when you actually go in circles, it is obvious that the inner cochlear fluid will be going in a disrupted circles. That's why even after stopping, you will be able to feel that you are actually feeling dizzy. So that's because of the cochlear fluid. So that is already taken care of. Now, when we have vermiform appendix function was like a secondary stomach. So why the secondary stomach is again dysfunctional now? Because we were eating things raw. Okay, it is usually plant, fruits, leaves, and vegetables and stuff in raw form. So when you eat that in raw form, so the plants always contain a substance called cellulose. So the cellulose cannot be digested because it requires an enzyme called cellulase enzyme. So this enzyme is not produced in the human body. It is not present in the human body. So we had a symbiotic relationship with few helpful bacteria in the vermiform appendix, where whatever cellulose was not digested will be accumulated in this region, and later by the action of the bacteria in that region, helpful bacteria, So the cellulose will become digested with the help of cellulase enzyme produced by the bacteria, and then the energy rich molecule is released. So that they will use the energy rich molecule for themselves, and they will literally leave the remaining in the large intestine, and in the large intestine the absorption along with the absorption of water, so this also takes place. So absorption of some of the glucose and the other sugar molecules also takes place. So this was the purpose of worm complex. Now we don't cook, we don't eat raw anymore. We have started to cook. So when we have started to cook, it is obvious that we will not be having any unbroken or unprocessed food. So there is no raw cellulose. So there was the symbiotic relationship between the bacteria and the human being was broken. So that is the reason why the appendix have become a vermiform, a small structure. So now its function is become completely useless. Okay, that's why we have considered that as vestigial organs. So there are several vestigial organs like this, and these are few of them. So this is also evidence of the evolution. And these are fossils. So I have placed few fossils which proves the existence of the organisms in another level. And there were missing links. So we were not able to understand like how did the birds come from, where did they evolve from. Okay, so that was actually realized once after they have found out the fossils of this particular bird-like creature called Archaeopteryx. Archea, Archaeopteryx, Archaeopteryx. So Archaeopteryx, what does it do? Archaeopteryx is actually a it looks like a bird, right? So if you see, zoom it up, it will have both the reptilian and the ave character. So aves means like birds. Birds actually have their body covered with feathers and then wings, right? So you see wing over here and the body is covered with feathers, right? So let's go in deep, okay? So if you see, it also has beak, which is actually a characteristic feature of a bird. But the problem is, in the beak, it also contains teeth. So teeth is actually a characteristic feature. Teeth, sharp pointy teeth is actually a characteristic feature of a reptile. So that is also found. And the forearm, which is not completely modified into wings, it will also contain a claw, which is also a reptilian character. And the reptiles have a lengthy tail. So birds, they don't have lengthy tail. So some of you might be asking, sir, peacock have lengthy tail. Why do you say that? Because peacock doesn't have lengthy tail. Peacock has the feather that is lengthy. The tail region is only shortened. Okay, but in this, so it will be feathers that will be coming in this direction, like this. That's why the feathers are lengthy in nature. So here you can see the tail itself is extended out of the body. Okay, post-anal tail. So these are the reptilian characteristics and the aves characteristics that are found in one single organism, which is believed to be the intermittent organism between the aves and the reptile. So this served as a missing link. So there are several missing links which always helps us understand the location or the differentiation or what is the common animal in between them. So like you'll be studying about this extensively in chapter 12. Okay, in 12th in a chapter in evolution and stuff. And you also should know what is the importance of fossils. So fossils are nothing but the sedimentation of the organisms upon they are buried out. Okay, so this sedimentation helps us understand, unravel lots of things, like when they would have lived, like what are the characteristic features that they have possessed, what was their main mode of transportation, what was their main mode of food and nutrition and stuff like that, what was their main hunting party, where they were like groups, where they're living in an individual as an individual. So we can have a lot of information collected from the following fossils. So when we actually do a process called carbon dating, okay, carbon dating. So this carbon dating technique helps us to measure the year, okay, that the fossils belong to. So this is one kind of technique called fossil. Okay, we can calculate the period of the fossil. So this is actually few of the evidences of evolution. So this is again a next level of evolution where we can see that the organisms of the tetrapods, okay, which you would have studied in class 9 under the chapter biodiversity in living organisms. So fishes belongs to class Isis, okay, and then salamander belongs to amphibians, and then tortoise belong to reptilia, and then chick belongs to class apes, and the pig, calf, rabbit, and human, they all belong to class mammalia. Now, the fish, salamander, tortoise, chick, pig, calf, rabbit, human, at a point, they all look similar. See, in the progression of evolution, they will be differentiating. So you can see at this next stage, the fish and the salamander look same. And the salamander, okay, this is like, metamorphosis. When it undergo metamorphosis, the gills will be lost. But in the case of fish, it will become a matured fish over here. But in the case of salamander, they will develop limbs, forelimb and hind limb, and then they will liberate the gills. Instead, they will develop the lungs. So this actually shows that they are very closely related. Okay, even in the embryology. So I'll tell you why we are studying about this. Okay, so the tortoise, you can see from tortoise to a human being, they all have same kind of characteristics, especially tortoise and chick. So you see the eyeball size, that's very big, way big. Compared to the pig, calf, rabbit, and human, they are all like literally similar, very similar, right? And then you see the chick and the tortoise, they both like look completely similar with the big eyes, and then they have the forelimbs modified into wings in apes. But in the case of reptile, they have post-anal tail and then limbs protruding, and then they have all the other characteristics of a reptile. So this literally helps you understand that the reptiles and the apes are like having a close relationship. So they would have been the next to fish and Pisces and amphibians. So after that, you can see mammals literally have almost all the characteristics same except for the tail. So tail is not present in human being. That's why we have a coaxial tail. Okay. So in the progression of, so what is the purpose of this? So this is called embryological evidence. So EMBRYO, embryological evidence. So this helps us understand the process that the organisms are undergoing a development. When they are undergoing embryological development, at every stage, it kind of resembles the previously group of organism, literally. So this shows the genetic memory that is inbuilt in the organism, okay, is from the ancestral groups. So this is actually seen in the embryological evidence. So this is actually the evidence of evolution again. So we'll go to the next one, which includes, okay, this is biochemical. Biochemical, and this is, sorry, this is molecular and that is biochemical, I think. Sorry, yeah, my mistake. See here. So this one, which I have mentioned it as a biochemical, is actually molecular in nature. This here is molecular in nature, and this here is biochemical. So when you see the molecular part, the human and the chimpanzee, okay, human and chimpanzee will have same sequence of amino acids in the hemoglobin: lysine, glutamine, histine, isoleucine. Lysine, glutamine, histine, isoleucine. You see that? And when you see the chimpanzee and gorilla, okay, you can see there is one amino acid difference: isoleucine and lysine. So, and in between the horse and the zebra, you can see the last amino acid is different. So, if you see, it is just a molecular structure difference that is going to make the differences in the organism themselves. So, so many smaller molecules combine together to form a bigger difference. So, just as I told you, a single variation could cause very less change. What if there is an accumulation of variation? This accumulation of variation will definitely cause a huge change in the organism. So that's what we have seen in the organisms with their species and their sequences of hemoglobin. So horse and zebra is like two different organisms, but they kind of look similar in the morphology, like certain morphology. Like they look both like like a horsey and a zebra eating, and then the coat is different, and then the color is different, and the height the stamina is different, and one of them runs faster, one of them is stronger. So likewise, you can see like most of the characteristics are similar, but only few characteristics are different over here. So when you talk about the biochemical part, okay, the number of amino acids different from human being and chimpanzee is 0. We have no amino acid difference. We have 20 amino acid plus one synthetic amino acid. So we have no differences between chimpanzee and human being with respect to amino acid. Between rhesus monkey and us, we have only 1. Between rabbit, we have 9. Between cow, we have 10 amino acid difference. Between a pigeon and human being, we have 12. Between bullfrog and human being, we have 20. Between fruit fly and human being, we have 24. Between wheat germ cell and a human being, we have 37. Between yeast and human being, there is 42. So this is the biochemical substances. The amino acid difference between organisms, completely different. In the previous one, we were talking about a hemoglobin molecule. Now we are talking about one particular amino acid that is not found in the organism at all. And so the less the number of differences, the more the related we are. It's obvious, right? So that's how we categorized in the biodiversity chapter. So the organisms are classified based on their similarities and differences. So the more the similarities, they are closer to the closely related. So more the differences, they are very distantly related. So this evidence helps us understand that how closely related is us and chimpanzees. So we have a common ancestor from which the chimpanzees have and human have evolved and diverged. So this really helps us understand or proves to be a good evidence of evolution. I hope you have understood the whole part of evidence of evolution. Now we'll go through some of the interesting things. What are inherited? What is my inherited traits? Any trait which is going to be inherited from the parent to the next generation through the genetic material. So these characteristics will be inherited from one generation to another generation. This inheritance of characteristics from one generation to the next generation, through the genetic material is called inherited trait. So the characteristic trait transmitted from the parent to the offspring are known as inherited trait. So height, skin color, ability to roll tongue. So they are talking about rollers and non-rollers. Anybody who can do this are called rollers. Anybody who can't do that are called non-rollers. That's actually a genetic characteristic. Okay. So let's do that again. This is called roller. Okay. The one who could do that, which I did now, is called rollers. And people who cannot do that, do something like protruding the tongue, I would say, just thinking that they are doing what they think they are doing, they are called non-rollers. Okay. So now let's get to the next question. What are the 5 evidences of evolution? There are 5 evidences of evolution, which includes the fossil records, the biogeography, comparative anatomy, comparative embryology, and the molecular biology. These are the 5 differences that we saw as the support for evolution. This is what we did just now, right? The fossil records, the biogeography, like how they have expanded themselves, and then the comparative anatomy that we did, like homologous and analogous organs, vestigial organs, and then comparative embryology, the embryological evidence we studied, and the molecular, biochemical and molecular evidences that we studied. So all of them are related to the supporting of evolution themselves. So I hope everybody would have understood and enjoyed the class. Thank you so much for having this wonderful time spent with me. And we have more videos coming up, and I want you to literally enjoy them. And if you have any questions, we suggest you to post them in the forum. We have exclusively best scheme that is available to answer your questions. And when we talk about videos watching, it's really fun. But try to engage with us in the live session. You will literally love the sessions more, and looking forward to see you with new videos. Okay. Thank you so much, guys.